If you read your bulletin, you see that the title of today's message is Garden Living. Garden Living. And I don't want you to think that I want you to go home and plant a garden. This has nothing to do with the garden you may have at home. Okay, we're going to turn to the scriptures. Okay, in the book of Bereshith or Genesis, chapter 2, verses 7 through 18. If you're there, say amen.
Amen.
And Yahweh Elohim formed the man out of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils breath of life. And the man became a living being. And Yahweh Elohim planted a garden in Eden to the east, and there he put man whom he had formed. And out of the ground Yahweh Elohim made every tree grow that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, with the tree of high in the midst of the garden, that's life, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And the river went out of Eden, and the waters of the garden from there it divided and became 4 riverheads. The name of the first is Pison, and there is one surrounding the entire land of Havilah, where there is gold. And the gold in the land is good. And then there's molybdenum, and Shona stone. And the name of the second river is Gihon. And in the one surrounding the entire land of Cush. And in the name of the third is the river Hiddekel, and is one which goes towards the east of Asher. And the fourth river is Perah. And Yahweh Elohim took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and guard it. And Yahweh Elohim commanded the man, saying, eat of every tree of the garden, but do not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for in this day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. And Yahweh Elohim said, it is not good for man to be alone, and I'm going to make a helper for him as his counterpart. You may be seated. You may be seated. You may be seated. I want to carefully go over this because a lot of people don't realize Adam literally had a phenomenal place to live in. Okay? It was absolutely phenomenal. Okay? And when you really look at this, okay, it's the land just east of Eden, hence why it's called the Garden of Eden. But look at the way it was established. Okay? I want to go over the rivers and the riverheads. Okay, the name of the first is called, like you said, Pishon, which is actually a dispersed river. Okay, the word Pishon means that the waters were dispersed among the entire garden. Okay, so there wasn't anywhere where Adam would travel where he would not come upon water if he was thirsty. Okay, water he could drink right out of the river. Okay, or jump in it if he wanted to cool down. It didn't matter. You see what I'm saying? And this is very interesting because, okay, the land of Havilah is a circular piece of land. Okay, and this circular piece of land literally encompassed just about everything that Adam needed, and more than enough for him to be able to go, walk, come, and do. And remember, he had to guard it and protect it. Okay, so he had to guard it, but he was also the one entrusted to work it, to keep it clean, to make sure that everything was okay. All right? So this is very interesting because we've reached a point now where people want garden living, but they want someone else to pay for it. See, garden living means you need to tend to your garden. If you don't want to tend to your garden, and technically you don't even have the right to eat. So we need to make sure that we understand that garden living involves you, Yahuwah Elohim, and everything that He has for you in your garden. See, we should be living today like Adam lived back then. Now, let me tell you what the most important thing about this entire scenario is that Adam was totally and completely dependent on Yahuwah Elohim. Totally and completely dependent on Yahuwah Elohim to provide for all of his needs. This is what we're supposed to be doing today. We're supposed to still be depending on him. Why? Because he created Adam out of the dust of the ground. But then if you read in the book of Jeremiah, okay, and I know it's something Yahoo, but I can't remember what it is, so we're not going to use the Hebrew Aramaic. Yahoo. We read in verse number 5 of chapter 1 that Yahuwah Elohim says, before I formed you in the belly, I knew you. Meaning what? He already knew who you were before he put you together. Therefore, you could totally come into this world depending on him. And the whole purpose of garden living is to fellowship with him so you get to know him.
Amen.
He already knows you. He knows everything about you. Look, he knows how many hairs you have on your head. He's already counted them. Do you understand what I'm saying? He knows everything there is to know about you. But let me ask you the question, how much do you know about him? And I'm not just talking about on a generic term. I'm talking about on a heart-to-heart basis where you are one-on-one with him and you truly understand the love of Elohim for you and he gets to feel the love of you for him. Oh, come on now. This is garden living. This is garden living. Where the only thing that stands between you and Elohim is nothing. That's the only thing that stands between the two of you. Nothing. He's available to you, and guess what? You are available to him 24/7, 365, and in our case, 1 year, 363. But do you understand what I'm saying? Do you realize the significance of this? Okay? Now listen. The second river is the river Gihon. Okay, and that's supposed to be a stream. And that's in the land of Cush. That's all the way in Ethiopia. This was a pretty big place. This garden was a huge garden. And let me tell you something. I strongly suspect that the 8,000 acres that Yahuwah chose for himself is where the garden is. Yeah. The 8,000 square acres that he said, this is mine on earth, that's exactly where the garden is, or was, or whatever. Okay? This is how significant it is. See, we're supposed to be garden living today. But most of us don't. Why? Because we're too busy chasing our cell phones. God, I hate those things. Okay? If not, we're on YouTube. And I'm not saying that it's bad. What I'm saying is that it has its place and it has to be used only for that purpose and then leave it alone. Okay? Get back to Elohim. Trust me, you're going to find Elohim a lot quicker in the garden than you will on YouTube. You're going to find him really quick in the garden. Okay? A lot faster than you will on YouTube. Why? Because when you go on YouTube, you're going to get some man's response to God. When you go in the garden, you're going to get God's response to you. Now, the third river is called Hiddekel. Okay? Now, I want you to understand something. This is known as the Tigris River today. Okay? And it's actually in Assyria. This garden was huge. It encompasses Assyria. It encompasses Ethiopia. It's huge. Adam could start walking on Monday or the day after the Sabbath, okay? Sunday for us. and walk for an entire month and never get through half the place in any direction. Do you understand what I'm saying? The place was huge, okay? And then the fourth river, okay, is the river Perah, which is actually the river Euphrates. Now, I want you to understand something. The word belitnum also means amber, pearl, and fragrant. Which means that when Adam was walking, there were lovely smells in the garden. Fragrant smells that he could just go and just enjoy. Could you? And he gave all that up for a piece of fruit. I'm gonna have to have a talk with that boy when I get up there. And that of course, I'm kidding, because it doesn't really matter. Once I'm up there, I couldn't care less what he did. I'm already there. Okay? But I want to go over verse number 9. Okay? And out of the ground Elohim made every tree grow that is pleasant in the sight and good for food. There was nowhere in this garden that Adam didn't go where he didn't find something to eat. In any direction. It didn't matter where he went. If he wanted a banana, there'd be a ripe banana waiting for him. If he wanted an apple, there'd be an apple waiting for him. No matter what it was. Whatever the fruit, lychee, there would be lychee waiting for him. We don't have anything here that wasn't there. Every fruit that's on the earth today was in the garden. There's nothing new under the sun. Once it was created. But, I mean, think of this. And pleasant fruit. But here's where the significance comes in. There was also the tree of life in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and we know, what happened with that. But it's very, very interesting that the garden scenario was a real simple covenant. You are my child. I am your Yahuwah Elohim, who will take care of everything you need. And all you have to do is fellowship with me. That's it. Now, I want you to ask yourself, how many hours of your day do you spend fellowshipping with him? Originally, it was every day, because that's what the garden was established as. But after the fall, we have work, we have children, school, sports, whatever, gym time, downtime, up time, drink time, breakfast time, lunch time, bathe time, shave time, whatever. But what I'm saying, in between of all that time, do you manage your time well enough to take some time to fellowship with him? And the reason why I ask is because in the renewed covenant, Yeshua asked them, would you pray with me for 1 hour? And they fell asleep. How much time do you actually spend in fellowship with him on a daily basis? Think about that. This is critical. We are reaching a point now where the trumpet's about to sound. We're about to get back to where we need to be. And I don't think that 3% of the family is ready to go. 3%, you know what that means? That's a remnant of the remnant. Assuming the remnant is 5%. We're really in some serious trouble here. And all because we don't take the time to just go back to living in the garden or garden living. Okay? And we can. Show me anywhere in either the old set of scriptures, like they say, which is actually not old, it's only one, okay? If you look at the scriptures, whether it be the original or the renewed, show me anywhere where it tells you how much time you need to fellowship with him. It isn't there. Meaning what? It's an optional thing for you to do. Now let me tell you something that's kind of interesting. You could measure someone's love for Elohim by the time they spend fellowshipping with him. Oh my Lord, did he just hit me in the nose? Come on now. Oh yeah. Yeah. You can tell how much someone loves Elohim by the amount of time they take from their day to fellowship with him. How important is he to you? I'll tell you how important he is to most people. They get to work on time, but they come to church late. And I'm not saying for people who have little children, they got to get. I'm talking about people who have nothing better to do. Okay, there are some who have conditions. Okay, they need to take care of elderly people and whatever. They got the things they need to do. Okay, and that's okay. But the majority of people that came in late because they were probably strung out from the late TV. They couldn't get up in the morning. Why? Because they was watching this good movie the night before. Really? Really? I'm telling you, just go to any church and get there early and watch how many people walk in late. Take a clicker with you. And then the bigger the church, the more late they get, the more people they have coming in late. If you want to get to church on time, get your clothes ready the night before. Set the alarm clock for a half hour earlier. Why? So you have 30 minutes at least to fellowship with him before you take a shower. Do you understand what I'm saying? People come to church looking to fill up a tank when they should be coming in with a tank full, ready to fill up somebody else's tank with the extra 5 gallons they brought on the side. You should be coming to church expecting to receive. Why? Because you've already fellowshiped with him that morning. He said, you know I'm coming. I know you're going to have something for me today. But we don't. We don't. And when I say we, I mean the body collectively. I know that many of us here who have spent time with him, I can see the growth in you. I see many things that are going on, okay? Especially with our youth, all right? I can see our children, how happy they are because Elohim is with them. But what I'm saying is that as a general rule of thumb, you will know how much someone loves Yahweh Elohim and Yeshua HaMashiach by the amount of time that they tend, oh Lord have mercy, by the amount of time they take to fellowship with him on a daily basis. And he's longing to fellowship with us. He's longing for us to say, oh, hi there, Dad. You know something, Jesus? Yeshua HaMashiach, for those of you who haven't got the Yeshua HaMashiach yet, Jesus, one of the same. You look handsome at the right hand of power. And I'm your brother. You know what that makes me? Just as good looking. Do you understand what I'm saying? We need to have that kind of garden living relationship where we can just come and be who he wants us to be, his child. That's it. Okay? Filled with his love in a loving relationship and keeping the commands. That's it. Okay? All right. Let's move on. All right? I want to read verses 19 and 20. And from the ground Elohim formed every beast of the field and every bird of the Shamayim and brought them to Adam to see what he would call them. And whatever the man called them, let me flip one page. And whatever the man called each living creature, that was its name. So the man gave names to all livestock and the birds of the Shamayim and every beast of the field, but the man there was not found a helper for him in his counterpart. Now I want you to understand something. Those two verses right there take the theory of evolution and blow it right the heck out of the water. Man did not evolve from some monkey to become a tree swinging whatever he is today. Okay? Man was created with intelligent design. He was created already having intellect. He was created already having love. He was created as a being so that he could relate to whatever his environment was, and to the point where he was able to give things names from whatever he thought they should be called. I tell you, you could take a bird to a monkey today and wait for 50 years and he'll never give you a name for a bird. So you didn't come from anybody's monkey. Okay? Want to clear that out, because this theory of evolution is insane. Okay? And right now we are in the evolution revolution, and we need to stand up for the gospel. Okay? Now, somebody in the world, okay, look. Look. If you want to have a serious battle, okay, take someone from the nation of Ethiopia, who are the dark-skinned people around us, who they're normally called black, and offensively now niggers and negroes, okay, and tell him that he's a monkey. You're going to have a serious battle on him, but yet you believe the theory of evolution. Why are you arguing with me when I'm agreeing with you? You said that you came from a monkey, so I'm calling you a monkey. You don't have anything to say to that. That's what you believe. And yet today, you will have all kinds of problems with that. Okay, why? Because deep down inside, in their spirit, they know that it's wrong. That's why they rise up. It has nothing to do with the fact that you insulted them. It has everything to do with the fact that they know deep down inside they are a created being that didn't come from a monkey. Okay? And if you want to make it even worse, why don't you call him your monkey's uncle? That's even worse. But you understand what I'm saying? We have so many things that are man-made, that, and the purpose of all that is to get you further and further and further away from garden living. Further and further away. Because the more you believe in all these theories and everything else, the worse it becomes for you. Okay? Now, if we go to Genesis Genesis 3:1 through 11, that was the fall of man. Okay? In verse number 12, all right? Then we get into the blame game. Oh, did you eat of the fruit? No, it was that woman that did it. Eve, did you eat of the fruit? No, it was the snake that did it. Then we're still doing that today. Okay? We're still doing that today. No matter what it is, it's your fault. Okay? So we have to make sure that we stay away from all of that also. Now, interestingly enough, in verse 15 of chapter 3, that is the first mention of Yeshua HaMashiach. Okay? In verse 15 in chapter 3. Now I want you to understand something too. In verse 21 was the first sacrifice made to clothe both Adam and Eve. Now I want you to understand something. Do you know that in the original garden, they were actually clothed in the glory of Elohim? Wow. They were clothed in the glory of Elohim. That's amazing. That is truly, truly amazing. And now in verses 22 to 24, they are thrown out of the garden. Okay? Let me go ahead and read that of chapter 3, verses 22 to 24. Okay. And Yahuwah Elohim said, "See that the man has become like one of us to know good and evil, and now lest he put his hand and take of the tree of high and eat and live forever." That's the reason why he got thrown out. Because he was now in the wrong place. That's not what he was created to be. And if he had gone and taken a piece of the fruit of the tree of high, he would have lived for eternity like that. So to make sure that didn't happen, Elohim, Yahuwah Elohim, and he drove man out, and he placed a cherubim at the east garden of Eden, and a flaming sword that turned in every which way toward. So if Adam tried to get back in, he was going to die. This thing was designed to kill. Anyone who tried to enter into the garden with sin would die at the entrance. Okay? And here's the kicker. It surrounds the entire thing. So no matter where you try to come in, that sword is going to hit you. From any direction. North, south, east, west, north by northeast, south by southwest, going underground and coming up to the middle now. The minute you got to the border, underground, the sword would meet you there. You would die. Okay? And the reason for that was because in verse 15, Elohim, Yahweh Elohim, had already established the plan of salvation when he introduced Yeshua HaMashiach. Before he threw them out. Now notice that he already established their salvation before he threw them out. And of course he kept them away from the tree of life, or life. Which is very, very, very important. Now, flip over to the book of Ezekiel. Okay, chapter 28. And it's Yehezkel. Chapter 28. Ezekiel. Listen to this. Even way back when, this was the biggest problem with the knowledge of good and evil. And the word of Yahweh came to me saying, and he's speaking to Ezekiel, Son of man, say to the prince of Zor, thus says the Adon Yahweh, because your heart is lifted up and you say that I am El, and I sit on the seat of Elohim, in the heart of the seas, whereas you are a man and not El, though you make your heart as the heart of Elohim. I don't know why men have wanted to be God, but that's one of the biggest problems that we've had. And listen, let me tell you something. If you come over, okay, this young man was actually in the garden, or had been in the garden. Okay? If you read the whole chapter, you find out that he was in the garden, and he talks about all the beautiful things that are in the garden and everything else. So that we could have it for ourselves. Okay? Yet, this has been the desire of man, is to be like God. Now, why do you suppose they want to be like God? Because God is the only one who has dominion over man. And it's man's heart's desire to have dominion over man, and therefore he wants to be God. And all he does is get further and further and further and further away. And see, and why is this so important? Because in garden living, there's only one God. You can't walk in and say, "Hi God, I'm taking over. Have a seat. I got this." It doesn't work that way. Yet we think we can. We literally think we can. I have no idea why they do that. I have no idea why they even come close to doing this. You know, before this day is done, what I want you to understand is the beauty of garden living, and that it's still available today. We can live, okay, in the presence of Yahweh Elohim. We can. Even now, with President Trump in the White House, it's still available. Why? Because it's available to him. Okay? It's available to him. It's available to all leaders all over the world. It's available to everyone all over the world. The problem is that we first have to recognize Yahuwah Elohim as Yahuwah Elohim, and we have to recognize Yeshua HaMashiach and first get saved before you can start your garden living. Salvation is a prerequisite to garden living. That's just how it is. I didn't say that. It's in the Word. The prerequisite to your entering the garden or to be in the garden living is Yeshua HaMashiach has to be your Savior, your Lord, and your King. That's it. And then you have to, of course, obey the commands. Now, I want to show you something. I'm getting ready to close this. I just wanted to give you a good idea of how wonderful Adam had it. He lived in a land where there was gold, there were precious stones, pearl, fragrances, fruit trees of every kind, fresh water everywhere. All the animals that he could, see and he had named, everything was there for him to enjoy and to be a part of. For his pleasure, this whole thing was created, and yet he gave it all up to please Eve. Gentlemen, be very careful when you please your wife and what you're pleasing her in. If it goes against Elohim, don't do it. For those of you that aren't married, lesson learned. If your other half brings something to you that goes against Elohim, it ends right there. In any way, shape, or form. Got it? Just because she's and all that, don't give in. Because the moment you do, you find yourself just like Adam in a mess. Okay? Lesson to be learned, very important. By the way, you women are still our helpmates, and you are also blessed by Yahuwah Elohim to give us insights in areas that we sometimes don't see. And it is critical that you bring forth things that are in your heart, especially if Elohim has placed it on your heart, because it gives us something that we need. And then when we go back to Elohim, he will bring it all together. Okay, so you have a vital role. Okay, it's not like all of a sudden taboo. No. You still have your vital role as the helpmate and as the other half. Remember that you can prophesy, you can do all kinds of things, pray, and all these other wonderful things. That's all still there. Okay, I'm not diminishing the female by any chance, because in the spirit we're equals. Okay, in the flesh you're the weaker sex. I didn't say that. Take it up with Elohim. Okay, that's what he said. They're the weaker vessel. So take it up with him if you want to become, Wonder Woman or something. That's between you and him. Okay? But what I'm saying is that it's in your weakness. Oh, thank you, Elohim. It's in your weakness that you have the maximum capacity of his strength. Oh, yes, man. Amen. Yes. Oh, glory. Glory. And when we as men recognize that capacity in you, you are an ultimate helpmate. Woo! Thank you. That was a good one. Do you understand what I'm saying? And that was straight from the throne room. I'm telling you, that's straight from the throne room. That's nowhere. Do you see what I'm saying? This is all garden living. This is garden living. When the man takes his rightful place in fellowship to Elohim, and she is allowed to take her rightful place in the same fellowship, that they could both maximize what Elohim has in store for them. That is garden living. Even here in this mess that we're in. You can still have that today. I didn't say that. He did. It's available to us today. Go to the book of Luke. I'm going to show you how important this garden living is. I told you that it's available to us today, right? And you know that I don't ever tell you anything unless I can prove it biblically, right? Now here comes the proof. Go to, by the way, Luke is Lucas, okay? chapter 22. There's one verse of scripture that I want to point out. When you're there, say amen. I'm still looking for it.
Amen.
Okay. Now, flip to verse number 44. Now remember, when Adam partook of the fruit, he cursed the ground in the garden. The ground in the garden and all of earth was cursed. All the ground was cursed. Right? Why? Because he came from the ground. So the curse that fell upon him fell upon the ground. Right? Now, listen to how important the garden is. Jesus, or Yeshua, okay, for those of you who still are using the other terms, is now in the Garden of Gethsemane. Now, I can't prove this, but I've often wondered if the Garden of Gethsemane was actually in the original garden. I've thought about that. It stands to reason that it could be, but I don't have any proof of it, so it's just me dilly-dallying in my own brain. But listen to this. He's in the Garden of Gethsemane. And being in agony, he was praying more earnestly. And his sweat became like great drops of blood falling down to the ground. I'm going to read that one more time and let it sit in your spirit for about, let it pressure cook a little bit. And being in agony, he was praying more earnestly, and his sweat became like great drops of blood falling down to the ground. The first thing that was cleansed by the precious blood of Yeshua HaMashiach was his heart, because it was pumping holy blood. However, the next thing that was cleansed by the blood was the ground in the garden, making the garden available to us from that moment. Oh, can I just get a witness to my garden living here today? Come on now. See, Elohim doesn't do anything without a function and a purpose. It was at that very same moment that the garden was restored back to Elohim, and we were restored back into the garden. Oh, come on now. Why? Because he is the tree of high. Woo! Come on now. In him you're going to get eternal life. Later on, of course, you get to partake of the fruit once you get there, but for now. But do you understand? Look how important this is. I mean, most people just read that and doesn't read it. Look how important that is to garden living today. It was restored for us to be able to enter in. This is why salvation is a prerequisite. Why? Because the garden has already been restored. Therefore, you have to be restored in order to get entrance into the garden. Salvation is your restoration in the precious blood of the Lamb. How wonderful is that? This is good stuff, church. We can live in that garden. And if you go to the garden, look, either under the mango tree or under the lychee tree. I'm sitting down. I'm having lunch. You'll find me there. But do you understand what I'm saying? How beautiful is that? And yet most people that I know have, and I thank Elohim for giving this, but that verse is directly tied to the garden way back in the beginning. That was good revelation for me. Ooh, I love it. Really good stuff. Okay? Now, I'm going to close with the Gospel of John, chapter 19. Okay? And it's Yohanan, for those of you who have the Hallelujah Scriptures. For those of you who don't, if you have a King James, it is the Gospel of John, chapter 19. Now, verses 38 through 42. Okay? And after this, Yosef of Ramathayim, being a Talmid of Yeshua, but secretly for fear of the Yahudim and Pilatus. Now we're talking about Pontius Pilate and all these other wonderful things that are going on. Gave permission, therefore, and came and took the body of Yeshua. Okay, he has already been crucified, and now they're getting permission to get the body. Okay, so Joseph is looking for permission to do so. And the Nicodemon, which is also known as Nicodemus, who was at first to Yahuwah by night. He was the one who showed up, okay, in chapter 3. All right. Also came bringing a mixture of myrrh, of aloe, about 100 litras, which is about 100 pounds. That's why most people believe that Jesus weighed about 200 pounds, because they used to use 1 pound of things for 2 pounds of body fat or body weight. Okay. Then they took the body of Yeshua and bound it in a linen wrapping with the spices, as it was habit of the Yahuvim, for burial. And at a place where he was impaled, there was a garden. There was a garden, and in the garden a fresh tomb which no one had yet been laid. Wow. Wow. That, if you don't consider that to be the final nail on the coffin of restoration, I don't know what is. He not only established the garden, made sure that all provision was there. He went ahead and cleansed it. Then he went ahead and had the body of his Bane, okay, buried in the garden. That is full circle. Okay? Meaning what? We were supposed to live in the garden for all eternity. But we sinned. Now we will taste of death. The significance of this and his body being buried in the garden is that no matter where you are, if you are a child of Elohim, at the moment of your death, you have now been buried with him in the garden, and you have been fully restored back into the garden for all eternity. Ha ha! Come on now. You're going back to garden living after you die. So why don't you just live in the garden now? Get used to garden living, and then it's just a continuation of what you were doing before. Garden living is for us today, and I'm telling you, I can't prove this any better for you. I showed you everything about the garden, everything that it was, okay? How sin occurred there and cursed the ground, and how Yahuwah or Elohim was it was the first thing that he cleansed with the blood after his heart, because he was born with the blood in him. Okay, so his heart was first cleansed. But the first spilling of blood, the restoration was the garden. And when he passed, he was finally laid to rest in the garden.